In Virginia, things are much closer. Democratic Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam is in a tight race with Trump-backed Republican Ed Gillespie.
President Trump weighed in on Twitter from South Korea this morning, writing, quote, Ralph Northam will allow crime to be rampant in Virginia. He's weak on crime, weak on great vets, anti-Second Amendment, and has been horrible on Virginia economy. Vote for Ed Gillespie today. And here's how Gillespie reacted to those tweets in an interview this morning.
Well, I appreciate his support, and any governor of Virginia has to work with the President of the United States. The fact is 20 cents of every dollar in our economy in Virginia is a direct federal dollar. We need to make sure we're building more ships and submarines in Newport News, that Norfolk remains the largest naval base in the world, that we dredge the channel in the Port of Virginia, and that we are getting more of our transportation dollars that we send to Washington, D.C. spent here in Virginia as we see fit. And I'll be able to work with the President and the Vice President and the Cabinet to get those things done. That's important for the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Great pivot. Let's bring in Gabe Debenedetti. He's a national political reporter from Politico, and he joins us from Arlington. So, Gabe, that seemed to be a very telling answer from Ed Gillespie there, saying he appreciates the president's support, but then pivoting directly to some other issues. I mean, is that pretty representative of what we've heard from him at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. You know, he said, we appreciate the president, didn't use the president's name. The president has not actually gone into Virginia for Gillespie, and, you know, now he's not going to. He's tweeted a few times, and that's exactly what the Gillespie people have hoped for as they try and get Trump's base behind him. But the reality is that this campaign that Gillespie has been running is not a very Trumpian campaign, and he's been trying to walk a really tightrope that the Democrats have no interest in letting him walk. Virginia has been becoming increasingly blue, so it's harder for someone like Gillespie when he needs to win over the Trump people, but he also needs to win over some more moderates. So, you know, this tightrope has been a pretty fine balancing act for quite a long time.
Well, he's an interesting guy, Gillespie, because he really is sort of a traditional Republican. He was the chair of the RNC. He worked for George W. Bush in the White House. When you talk about that fine line, the race he has been running, in this race, he's really latched onto what some people would say are hot button issues. Others might say dog whistle issues like Confederate statues, things of that nature. How would you describe the overall strategy of his campaign?
Yeah, well, this all actually goes back to the primary. Gillespie was supposed to win his primary really easily, but he was running against someone named Corey Stewart, who was the Trump campaign's Virginia chairman last year. Stewart actually came within 1 point out of nowhere. So ever since then, the Gillespie folks have been very concerned about the Trump base, and that's why you see him over and over talking about these issues that are sort of Trumpian in a way, really trying to start, if not necessarily a culture war, trying to run a campaign based on cultural issues that, yes, are quite divisive. And that's one of the things that Democrats have been long concerned about, because if it wins, they're worried that this means that Trumpian politics is here to stay.
And as for the implications of that win, Gabe, for the Democrats, you tweeted this morning, quote, there's a growing sense among D.C. Dems that someone symbolic will have to be held accountable if Northam loses tonight, but the big question, who? So, give us your best guess. Where will the blame lie if Northam doesn't win, if he comes up short?
Well, let's be clear here, which is that Northam is still the favorite, and he's still favored to win. Virginia is turning a little bit more blue, but these polls really have been tightening. I don't know who is going to be the head to roll, the person that shoulders a lot of the blame. But, of course, Northam himself will have to take a lot of it if he does lose. What's really telling here, though, is that even though Northam holds a lead in the polls, even though Virginia is led by, right now, a Democratic governor and 2 Democratic senators, Democrats nationwide and in Virginia are pretty nervous. They really are not confident about this at all. A lot of them are having flashbacks to 2016's election day. So that's why you're seeing these sort of nerves. And I think if he does lose, the recriminations are not going to be fun for any Democrat in Washington.
Right. Before we let you go, Gabe, we got to ask you a little bit about something that the president tweeted out this morning. Vlad read out the tweet earlier. He said that Ralph Northam was weak on veterans and crime, but particularly the point where he's weak on veterans. Mr. Northam served as a U.S. Army medic for 8 years. He served during Operation Desert Storm. You know, what do you make of this?
How are you weak on vets if you're a vet yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Going after the veteran in the race as weak on veterans was not necessarily the best political moment from the president, but it does sort of speak to the broader point that we were talking about earlier, which is that this has not been a race that has been about Trump. He's been looming over it all, but he has not gone in once. Pence went in, Vice President Pence went in a few times for Gillespie, but Gillespie has really been trying to keep Trump at an arm's length, and this just goes to show you that while Trump has been monitoring the race, he's not really been in touch with the day-to-day contours of what's been happening on the ground. And, you know, this is just what he says about a lot of Republican
candidates. Well, that's what I was going to say, Gabe. That what it says to me is that the president knows nothing about this candidate, because if he did, he would know that it's really hard to be against vets if you are a vet yourself. And that, in fact, the president, as Anne-Marie suggested, is using dog whistle terminology, dog whistle phrases that appeal to his base. Weak on vets is somebody that, anybody in this country, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, could say, I don't want somebody in higher office who is not going to support our veterans. Right. But it just seems to me to be a sort of dog whistle that he used without even knowing the facts. It's sort of like a
fill in the blank. It's like not only not knowing the facts about the candidates that it's running, but also whether or not that sort of tweet would be beneficial in that race.
Right.
Right. Absolutely. And as you said earlier, Ed Gillespie is actually the consummate Republican insider, which is the exact kind of person that Trump spent almost 2 years running against. So they don't have a great relationship. Not that they don't have any, but they just don't talk that much. So really what Trump was sort of expressing is Republicans are better than Democrats, and that's how I feel, so let's go act on that.
Right. Politico's Gabe Debenedetti. Thanks a lot, Gabe.
Thank you.